wasn't it? This was a big decision, an amazing decision, one that we're very happy about. This morning, the Supreme Court has delivered a monumental victory for the Constitution, the separation of powers, and the rule of law in striking down the excessive use of nationwide injunctions to interfere with the normal functioning of the executive branch. The Supreme Court has stopped the presidency itself. That's what they've done. And really, it's been an amazing period of time this last hour. There are people elated all over the country. I've seen such happiness and spirit. Sometimes you don't see that, but this case is very important. I was elected on a historic mandate, but in recent months we've seen a handful of radical left judges effectively try to overrule the rightful powers of the president to stop the American people from getting the policies that they voted for in record numbers. It was a grave threat to democracy, frankly, and instead of merely ruling on the immediate cases before them, these judges have attempted to dictate the law for the entire nation. In practice, this meant that if any one of the nearly 700 federal judges disagreed with the policy of a duly elected president of the United States, he or she could block that policy from going into effect or at least delay it for many years, tie it up in the court system. This was a colossal abuse of power which never occurred in American history prior to recent decades. And we've been hit with more nationwide injunctions than were issued in the entire 20th century together. Think of it, more than the entire 20th century, me. I'm grateful to the Supreme Court for stepping in and solving this very, very big and complex problem, and they've made it very simple. I want to thank Justice Barrett, who wrote the opinion brilliantly, as well as Chief Justice Roberts, and Justices Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Thomas. Great people. Thanks for this decision, and thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with numerous policies that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis. And some of the cases we're talking about would be ending birthright citizenship, which now comes to the fore. That was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country on a vacation. This was, in fact, it was the same date, the exact same date, the end of the Civil War. It was meant for the babies of slaves, and it's so clean and so obvious. But this lets us go there and finally win that case, because hundreds of thousands of people are pouring into our country under birthright citizenship, and it wasn't meant for that reason. It was meant for the babies of slaves. So thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with these numerous policies and those that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis, including birthright citizenship, ending sanctuary city funding, suspending refugee resettlement, freezing unnecessary funding, stopping federal taxpayers from paying for transgender surgeries, and numerous other priorities of the American people. We have so many of them. I have a whole list. I'm not going to bore you, and I'm going to have Pam get up and say a few words, but there's really, she can talk as long as she wants, because this is a very important decision. This is a
courageous media. The winning continues. We have got massive breaking news out of the Supreme Court of the United States. SCOTUS has delivered a monumental win for the Trump administration. They have ended effectively all nationwide injunctions from lower level, inferior, black robe district court judges. No longer are any of these nationwide injunctions valid. As Trump said in that opening segment, they are immediately going to move to essentially unenjoin all of them, to debunk all of them, and pave the way for things like the end of birthright citizenship, which will most likely see another Supreme Court case on the merits, but paves the way for massive deportations, for massive defunding of sanctuary cities, for massive defunding of gender-affirming mutilations for minors. This basically obliterates every single inferior district court judge nationwide injunction that has stopped the president's and the Trump administration from making good on their campaign promises. This is a massive, massive win. It's fantastic. We got some great news. We're going to check in on Fox News. But thanks, everybody, for rolling up. Really appreciate you being here on this winning Friday. Check this out from Fox.
The interruption, but Shannon has some information for us. Let's go to you, Shannon Bream. You're there with that case?
Okay, yes. So this is at least a partial, if not a full, and we're reading this because there are several concurrences here, but it's written by Justice Barrett, which goes against the ruling that I just gave the guidance because she's one of the least junior justices, but she was assigned to write this opinion. And essentially what she says, some say that the universal injunctions give the judiciary a powerful tool to check the executive branch, but she says federal courts do not exercise general oversight of the executive branch. They resolve cases and controversies consistent with the authority Congress has given to them. When a court concludes the executive branch has acted unlawfully, the answer is not for the court to exceed its power, sounding very much like they are limiting these injunctions. We know here that they have granted at least partially the stay to these preliminary injunctions, but they say only to the extent that the injunctions are broader than necessary to provide complete relief to each plaintiff withstanding to sue. They say the lower courts have to move expeditiously with respect to each of these plaintiffs. It says the injunctions are also stayed to the extent that they prohibit executive agencies from developing and issuing public guidance about the executive plans to implement the executive order. If you remember, part of this executive order on birthright citizenship, the stay was that the agencies that would be responsible for actually implementing the change with birthright citizenship, those agencies couldn't even start making a plan. So that part of it is lifted as well. We do see that the dissent here comes from the three justices you expect. It looks like Justice Sotomayor filed the dissent. Kagan and Jackson joined that. Justice Jackson also filed a dissenting opinion, but there are a lot of concurrences here. Justice Thomas, Justice Alito, there are others. So we'll parse through this, but at its first blush, it looks like this is a win and putting a limit on these nationwide injunctions. We'll see how far those limits go as we dig back through this.
Got it.
Absolutely amazing. So basically what you hear in that ruling is no longer can they issue sweeping injunctive relief. If you've watched this channel, we've checked in with the right of self-defense and other attorneys that have said over and over and over again, in order for a district court to even have the legal authority to issue any kind of injunctive relief, you have to have a case in which there is severe harm to be done in the interim, and that harm cannot be undone by money. It cannot be made recompensed by money. And so all of these cases are essentially out. The only injunction that any of these lower level, inferior, black robe district court judges can do is injunctive relief for their specific plaintiffs. That's it. They can no longer enjoin the executive branch at a state, a district, or a nationwide level. They can only issue injunctive relief for their particular plaintiffs in their particular case. And of course, as you heard, the decision was 6-3. So it's not like it was even that close. This was not a 5-4. This was not a nail biter. This was a 6-3 decision right down the lines you would expect. And the fact that Roberts joined in on supporting the executive branch on this one says, because as you know, Roberts generally swings left, that this was more of a landslide than anything. The only three against it, Ketanji Brown Jackson, Sotomayor, and Kagan, the three you would expect. But this is absolutely massive. Massive news for the Trump administration, for the presidential agenda, for the agenda that the American people voted in a landslide to implement. This is absolutely great stuff. Hey, welcome in everybody. More chaos in the House, and Roscoe Tier in the House as well. This is great news for America. Absolutely. And as Trump said, so Trump tweeted about this even before he got on TV. Here we go. Great win in the United States Supreme Court. Even the birthright citizenship has been indirectly hit hard. Now, this is true. But of course, there will be most likely be another lawsuit, another case on the merits of birthright citizenship. And the Supreme Court will have to decide and make an interpretation of the amendment to determine if the clause under the jurisdiction thereof absolutely does limit birthright citizenship to those born in the United States to legally residing persons. In other words, you have to be a legal resident of the United States. You have to be here legally in order to have your child and have that child get birthright citizenship. If you are here illegally, you are very much like a diplomat of another nation. You are not under the jurisdiction of the United States. So just like if you were a foreign diplomat from country XYZ and you had your baby in the United States, your baby does not get birthright citizenship. It does not happen. And so the children born to illegal immigrants, people here illegally, or people here on a tourist visa should not get birthright citizenship. So it has been indirectly hit because the injunction has been lifted. So now the administration can make plans. The administration can issue proclamations. They can start denying birthright citizenship to people here illegally now. That will undoubtedly force another lawsuit, which will undoubtedly make its way through the courts. And we will probably see this case adjudicated on the merits at some later date. But in the meantime, we can stop this nonsense. This is absolutely amazing. Ketanji, J.O., you are absolutely correct. Ketanji Brown Jackson does not know what a woman is. So guarantee you she doesn't know what an immigrant is. But this is absolutely amazing news. Yay, Kim Michaels, Common Sense Rules. Welcome in. Thanks so much for rolling up. Really appreciate everybody being here. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share Courageous Media with everybody that you know. We got two other stories that we want to get to. That one is absolutely huge. Now we've got another one, which seems to have been lost in the weeds of Supreme Court decisions, in the weeds of the Iran strikes and the subsequent ceasefire, peace in the Middle East. We've got another story which has to be covered over and over and over again because I believe it is the biggest scandal. Well, it's the biggest scandal since they spied on Trump's campaign. It's the biggest scandal since Joe Biden was essentially taking bribes from foreign nations. It's the biggest scandal since other Joe Biden scandals. But check this out, because the autopen scandal is once again starting to take front and center. Here we go.
So when we broke the autopen scandal a couple months ago, our first tweet was whoever controlled the autopen controlled the White House. And that's exactly right. The Biden administration should have invoked the 25th Amendment. It was clear to everyone he was incapacitated. I don't think anybody argues now with any credibility that Biden was fully in control, at least towards the end or second half of the administration. That's why he dropped out of the presidential race. And so what the Senate looked at was how the autopen was used as a device, an instrumentality to avoid invoking the 25th Amendment, which the vice president and a majority of the cabinet should have done. That's what the 25th Amendment says. They instead decided they preferred an incapacitated president. And so why exactly they preferred it? The answer seems kind of obvious to me. It's because the staffers could take over the White House and control the decisions. But that is the constitutional abuse. That is a scandal. The 25th Amendment's there for a reason. In 1967, it passed after 4 presidents were assassinated in 100 years. 2 were incapacitated. It's a clear process to deal with the situation we had with Joe Biden.
So obviously he said something very salient there. He said they didn't want to invoke the 25th Amendment because then the staffers would have control. Now remember that they had a sitting vice president. They could have handed control to Kamala Harris, but there was no one in the Democrat Party that wanted to do that. Remember, they didn't want her to be vice president, really. They wanted her there as a token to help Joe Biden get elected. But there was nobody. When you read the insider communications of the Democrat staffers, of the Democrat Party, they didn't want Kamala Harris anywhere near the White House. They thought she was incompetent. They thought she was a buffoon. So they didn't want to hand it over to her. And so the staffers, but she had to be in on this. The whole thing is amazing. This whole thing is a huge, major scandal. We did not have a proper functioning sitting president for years in the last administration. Now check out Waters, because Waters nails it on the head as well. Very short clip here.
One of his top aides just testified to Congress that she directed autopen signatures without knowing who gave the final approval. One of his top aides just testified to Congress that she directed autopen signatures without knowing who gave the final approval.
So you've got a staffer who is signing documents without any knowledge if the president has actually approved this. It cannot be approved by his wife. It cannot be approved by the vice president. It cannot be approved by the Secretary of State or the Attorney General or anybody else. These documents had to be approved by the president. And a staffer saying the president approves it when the president didn't actually approve it is not copacetic. So you've got a staffer basically admitting, I signed the documents. I have no idea if they were ever actually approved. Now, I want to clue you in. I got two more segments that I want to get to on this. The first is just about the fact that this was an open invitation for bribery and corruption. We're going to get that from the Benny Show. And then we're going to dive into the most recent one, which is Anthony Bernal, who is Jill Biden's chief of staff, now coming to the forefront as the lead architect of this entire autopen scandal, and possibly the one who was issuing all of the orders and saying illegitimately, dishonestly, that Joe Biden had approved them. Because remember, he's not Joe Biden's chief of staff. He's Jill Biden's chief of staff, essentially making Jill Biden the de facto president. So let's dive in first with the Benny Show and talk about the open corruption that this fostered.
Trafficking. I mean, that happens because of an open border, 25 million, many hundreds of thousands of children because of Joe Biden. Now we learned that Joe Biden had terminal illness the entire time he was in office. Maybe this was what all of the vacations, 577 days on vacation. Perhaps he was getting cancer treatment. We have had doctors on the program all yesterday saying all of Joe Biden's activities, the weakness, the falling, the fog, the brain fog, that's because of cancer medication. They were hiding this from the American people. What should happen to the people who hid this from us? Are Joe Biden's acts constitutional? What's your measure on Jill Biden?
Well, that'll be decided at the courts, but I'm sure we'll write somebody a strong letter and move on about it. I don't think anybody really brought to justice over this. You've got staffers. I would look. Tennessee has had a history of this. We had a governor several.
Now, unfortunately, what he said there is probably true. The Congress is absolutely feckless. Half of them are not real patriotic Americans. 90% of the Republicans are actually Democrats. All the Democrats are Democrats and basically socialists. 99% of them are controlled by the globalist cabal of corruptocrats. They're socialists, they're communists, they're evil anti-American deep state stooges. So to see anything come out of Congress on this is probably too far, a bridge too far. No, we need Kash Patel. We need Deputy Director Bongino, and we need Attorney General Bondi to take this up. They need to be the ones issuing subpoenas, opening investigations, and bringing these people to justice. These are criminal charges. Forget Congress and the ridiculous oversight. Use that to bring people out into the light and figure out where you're going to go with your investigation. But there need to be real criminal penalties for this.
Governors ago, he's since passed away, but he sold pardons. You can look it up. His name was Ray Blanton. It made national news, and I mean they wrote songs, "Pardon Me, Ray," and it was a cash for clemency deal, and that's exactly what I think you're going to find out. You're going to find staffers that were able to take forms, get them, and run them through some sort of bogus legal system, and then they auto-penned them. And there's probably people out on the street that shouldn't be, but somebody got rich off that. And
Wow.
and I think those people, I hate to say it, but you'll see something probably horrible happen to some of those people because it goes up the chain. This is a very dangerous town to play games in.
So you're saying that the Biden staffers took payouts and just ran the autopen for certain pardons.
I have no direct proof of that, but I'm just talking about history. And if you got somebody making $100,000 a year and somebody offers you $250,000 in some safety deposit box. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
look at all those. Look at those. Look at Clinton's.
Absolutely true. And when you couple that with the fact that the Biden administration in the last days of their tenure issued 8,000 pardons. Let me double check that I have that number right. I believe the number was 8,000 pardons, which was just, I mean, that is orders of magnitude more than anybody else ever in the history of the United States. So if anybody in the comments can fact check me on that one, I believe the number that has been bandied about by a bunch of people is that there was a total of 8,000 pardons. Now imagine that. $250,000 a piece, $50,000 for some of them, $100,000 for some of them. Think of the money that changed hands, potentially changed hands in a corrupt pardon scandal. Now, exacerbate that, draw that out into the staffers actually running the show, not just for money, but also for all of their pet agendas. Realize that so many of the policies that the Biden administration pushed were not even policies that Biden himself espoused while he was a senator or even a vice president. Now, Biden was utterly corrupt. He was as far left as you could think for a normal Democrat. But there was a lot of policies. He was never in for an open border, him personally. But as soon as he got in office, that border was opened wider than an open sieve. And so there were a lot of cases where you looked at policies going, this is not something that Joe Biden normally espoused. And if he was going to do it, he wouldn't do it. He would do it on the down low. He wouldn't do it out for everybody to see. But now come to find out that you've got this autopen scandal. You've potentially got hundreds of millions of dollars that changed hands for bogus pardons. And now check this out, because now you've got Jill Biden's chief of staff implicated as the potential ringleader to this entire soft coup that took place inside the White House over the last 4 years.
What do you make of Congress now having to issue the subpoena to get Jill Biden's, let's just say, they keep calling it the work husband. We'll just go with it. I like it. The work husband to come by and to speak with Congress. What do you think of that subpoena?
Yeah, so first thing, I think everyone in the audience needs to know, credit's owed to Congressman Comer. He's doing a great job here at the Oversight Committee of making sure that this little coterie of staffers that really ran the White House are now being brought to the mattress and being asked to explain what it was they were doing, exercising the Article 2 powers of the presidency when Joe Biden was in no way, shape, or form capable of serving as commander-in-chief. So
the person they're talking about, her work husband, is her chief of staff, Anthony Bernal. So Anthony Bernal is now emerging as the focus point of who ran this entire autopen scandal. And he has so far dodged congressional subpoenas. I'm saying subpoena the man, and if he does not show up on the date and the time, you send it immediately to Bondi and have federal marshals arrest his butt and throw him in prison. There need to be real criminal penalties for all of this. Repins 12, thanks so much. Yes, Neera Tardon was also involved in this. David Himmelsbach, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Repins 12, they need chrome bracelets. You're 100% accurate. Let's keep going.
As you know, Brianna, a lot of people in DC just want to say, this is old news. This story is stale. It's time to move on. And so Comer and a couple of others are saying, no, now is the time to bring them in to testify. And if they won't come willingly, let's subpoena them and figure out what did they know about the president's mental capacity? When did they know it? And then what did they do with that knowledge? Because here's the really interesting part of the autopen scandal. The autopen itself is an issue, of course. What documents were signed by the autopen and who was using the autopen and under what terms. But the real issue is, did the president of the United States authorize those individuals to use the autopen. The Constitution gives executive power to one person and one person only, not a group of people, not a Politburo, not the work husband of Dr. Biden. Only Joe Biden was supposed to be exercising Article 2 power under our Constitution. And
So what you've got emerging now is that Jill Biden used her chief of staff, the person who basically worked most closely with her, to essentially run the presidency. Just like Jill Biden showed up and ran a cabinet meeting because Joe Biden was completely incompetent and incoherent. We're now finding out that most likely most of this presidential authority was wielded by Jill Biden, either in conjunction with and through Anthony Bernal, or by Anthony Bernal himself, just acting as the, using his authority as chief of staff to Jill Biden to get in there and run things. This is absolutely a major scandal. And anybody involved with auto-penning documents without the express authority and approval of Joe Biden need to go to prison. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. They need to end up behind bars. We are not going to let this story go. We are going to keep trumpeting the story because we have to have a resolution on this. We have to find out who is doing this. We have to find out if hundreds of millions of dollars changed hands. If they did, all of those pardons need to be null and void, specifically for people like Fauci and others who need to be brought to justice for what they did to this country during the whole COVID scam. There are so many things that have to be undone. And again, there have to be real material penalties. Otherwise, there is no deterrent. Otherwise, the Dems and the libs will get in and simply do this again because they realize that even if they get caught, nothing will happen to them. There have to be real material losses. Loss of power, loss of prestige, loss of money, loss of freedom for these people. Sean McMillan, the autopen has more brains. Absolutely. Gene Lagerquist, hello from Washington State. Welcome in from Washington State. Thanks so much for joining. I used to live in Seattle, Kirkland, across the way. Juanita Beach. It's beautiful back then. Now it's an S-hole because the liberal Dems in Seattle have absolutely destroyed that city. But while this is all going on, I have more good news. So we have phenomenal bookend good news. The SCOTUS has absolutely handed Trump his biggest victory yet, eliminating all nationwide injunctions from lower inferior district court black robe judges. We've got the autopen scandal proceeding, albeit slowly, but now we've got other phenomenal news. Do you remember the Panicans? The Panicans, that's our new great name for them. The Panicans who were panicking over Trump bombing Iran, and then all of a sudden he got a ceasefire. There were Panicans over Trump's tariffs. Oh, there's going to be inflation. Oh, the market's in meltdown. Oh, everybody's 401k is vanishing. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? As it turns out, Trump was right. Before we get into this, please like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share Courageous Media with everybody that you know. We are now monetized again. Let everybody that you know that we are, let everybody you know that we are monetized. Please join us as a member of the Courageous Army. You can also hit us with a super. Really appreciate everybody rolling up. But there is more winning. Check this out. This is going on. Breaking news today. The S&P 500 has officially hit a new record high. So much for your 401k is vanishing. Your 401k is dead. Trump is killing the middle class of this country. Oh, no, no, no. The S&P 500 just hit a record high, higher than ever been before. Check this out from CNBC. Absolutely great stuff here. Actually, this is Fox Business.
Well, will you look at the left-hand side of your screen? That's Dow. That's stock futures. I mean, they're way up. 1,200 points up for the Dow, over 116 for the S&P. That's a rally and a half. It's a Trump rally. Let's be obvious about it. Tom Hayes joins me this morning, checking out the market for us. It's a Trump rally, obviously. How long does it last?
Well, that's a great question. This is what lower regulation and lower taxes look like, Stuart. I wouldn't chase this up immediately, but I think this is a sign of great things to come over the next 4 years, no question about it. The opportunities here, obviously, you're seeing small caps outperform this morning, up 6%. We like regional banks. That's going to continue to flourish. And Intel is, interestingly enough, I know I've brought this up on the show. Remember when it collapsed below 20 and I said, Stu, I think it's a buy here. It's trading below breakup value. It's up 4.5%. Why? Because Trump is going to want to manufacture those chips in the United States and reduce our dependency on Taiwan for our chips. That's a national security thing. And another one that, again, no one likes is Boeing. Boeing was up 300% during Trump's first term. This is a hated stock right now. They've just resolved the rally. I think there's going to be opportunity there as well.
You're assuming that Trump has something to do with a turnaround for Boeing. I'm not sure
Boeing
about that.
is a proxy for U.S. manufacturing, and Trump is all about U.S. manufacturing. This is going to be a manufacturing-friendly environment. There are going to be policies that are going to be manufacturing-friendly, and when you unleash American ingenuity in manufacturing, good things happen.
Why?
So you've got absolutely great stuff going on. You've got the market. This is where it closed yesterday. So check this out again. We are at record levels everywhere you look. Here we go. Record highs. Dow Jones, NASDAQ, S&P 500. This is amazing, amazing stuff. Let me pull this up. So right now, the market is, in addition to yesterday, stock market today, let me pull this up. So it was up 590 yesterday. Today is up again 470 at the printing of this article. This is absolutely awesome. This is the 27th. This was as of 12:30, so about 45 minutes ago. It's up another 470. The market is soaring. They cannot stop Trump from winning. This is amazing stuff. Wanted to let you know we got phenomenal news. The Panicans were wrong again. The SCOTUS has just handed Trump a major victory, and we have got to get this in the middle. We've got to get this autopen thing resolved and make sure there are real material penalties to anybody who broke the law. But really appreciate everybody rolling up. Repins 12, Gene, J.O., thanks so much for being here. More chaos. Kim, you guys are awesome. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share Courageous Media with everybody that you know. Remember, God is good and He is sovereign. It'll all be good in the end. And until I catch you next time, more winning. Let's go.